Every morning here on WCPT at 5 a.m., we hear Rick Smith, The Rick Smith Show, airing right before Richard Chu takes the helm at 6 a.m. Rick is always an interesting person to talk to about particularly government and labor issues, but he has also been going through a very personal situation that he has shared on social media. His wife, Carol, was gravely injured in a traffic accident, and Rick has been keeping us updated on how her recovery is going. Rick Smith joins us now. Rick, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Joan. Thanks. I appreciate it. On September 12th, my wife was involved in a motorcycle accident. A woman driving a van just turned left and basically ran her over. And we didn't have much hope that she was going to make it, but she's a fighter and she's in there fighting every day. And we were taking the little wins, and we're guardedly optimistic that Mom's going to be coming home very soon and healing and being back to normal. Back to who she was, and we had a big day today. Surgery, got some pins taken out of her fingers and her wrist, so that's a huge win. So we're hopeful.
She broke a lot of bones, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, she broke everything on the right side of her body. Compound fracture of the femur, compound fracture of the ulna and radius, broke the forearm in both bones of the forearm in 7 places, tibial plateau split in half. I mean, lots of really, really horrible stuff. But all that's going to heal. Our big concern is cognitively, because she had a serious brain injury. She has a traumatic brain injury, and we won't know for a year or more, what returns. And we're, but look, ultimately we're thankful that she's here with us, and we got a shot to lead a normal life, or the life that we had planned together. So yeah. I'm really, and I want to thank everybody, because we've gotten cards from people and notes and emails and texts and all kinds of stuff from people all across the country. Just sharing their love, sharing their thoughts and prayers. They're good vibes, they're good juju, whatever. But I want to throw that out and thank everyone. It's meant an awful lot to the family, and it will mean an awful lot to Carol when she scrapbooks this entire event.
Yeah. Well, the good news is it wasn't all that long ago that neurologists were of the opinion that, whatever you were going to recover in 6 months and after that. And then there were people who kept getting better and kept recovering. And, as long as they were stimulated and were doing the work. And so that they don't say that anymore. You're right. It's a long haul, and sometimes the victories are small. But for at least the next couple of years, there's every possibility that Carol is going to continue to regain and regain and regain.
Yeah, and look, we're going to give her every opportunity, because I'm very fortunate. And I say this, being grateful that I'm extremely privileged in that. I have a union job with union health insurance. We have never had a problem with any of the things that she needs. Our insurance covers it. Whatever's going to happen down the road will happen. I have a job that I don't worry about losing. I have a callback that could last as long as I need. I don't worry about the stress. Had a little savings because I do have a good union job that affords me the ability to have a good nest egg. So I'm extremely privileged, because I can't imagine if I had those other stresses on top of all of this, figuring out how to be Mr. Mom now and figuring out how to do all of these other things that I've never had to do before, as well as take care of my wife. I don't know how I would deal with it, and I am eternally grateful to my union and to the representatives who represent in the company that I work for honoring the contract. But for me, this is another one of those reasons that you become a member of a labor union, that in times of crisis, in times of turmoil, there's someone going to be at the bat for you. And I like I said, I'm grateful to my Teamsters union for that.
But we have recently elected someone to the White House who has made no secret of the fact that he is no fan of unions. He put a union buster as head of the NLRB last time around, and I don't believe we can count on him for anybody better this time around. I'm a union member, lifelong union member like you, and I know that we just have to live through 4 years or maybe even just 2 years if we can retake one or both of the houses. But, Rick, I think unions are really going to find themselves under fire.
Oh, without question. If you look at Project 2025, they were very clear in what they want to do. And for all those people who said, no, Rick, Project 2025, that's not Donald Trump's agenda. Nonsense. It is the agenda. It is what they're moving. And, I keep saying that, and I've been saying this on the show, the solutions will come out of the suffering. The solutions will come out of the savagery of what they're going to do. There's an old labor saying, sometimes your head gets right when your stomach gets empty. And I fear we're going to head to that moment because, as Elon Musk said, we're going to need some temporary people being uncomfortable for a while so that we can get things the way that we want them, which is, going back to the 80s and 90s and not the 1980s and 90s. We've heard Trump talk about how much he liked the 1880s and the policies and the trade laws and all the stuff of that era. But what he really liked about it is that's the robber baron era. That's when the billionaire class controlled virtually everything. And working people were subservient in their place, docile, and, oh, by the way, exploitable. And that's where they want to put us back to. They need a good crisis to put working people back in their place. The Elon Musks of the world, we got to get those remote workers back to work. It really is about putting uppity workers back in their place. People like me. Yeah,
you and me both, kiddo. One of the things, speaking of Elon Musk, I think the only thing that I'm hoping for is that the two narcissists will eventually clash and their bromance will come to a bad end. And, man, I am so looking forward to that day.
No, we're taking bets on who throws who under the bus first. Will it be Trump or will it be Musk? Because look, Trump obviously going to be the president. He's got the megaphone, but Elon Musk bought Twitter. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because Musk, in the Department of Government Efficiency that takes two people to run.
Because it's
I'm not
so
quite
efficient.
sure how him and Vivek are going to get along. I'm not sure how that uncomfortable marriage will get along. But also, they don't have any power. There's nothing they can do.
It's completely advisory.
It's a suggestion box.
They're the only ones who call it a government agency. It's basically, what are we going to do with these two guys that we don't really want, but we don't want to make them mad? So let's make up a job and make it sound important and give it to them. I don't know. I think that's how that conversation went down.
It's a suggestion box. And, ultimately, they name it Doge after Musk's Bitcoin because, you got to appease him however you can. This is what happens when you have people who are so wealthy that they can strong-arm government. And this is dangerous. Working people should be very afraid of what they've done because this administration is going to be the CEO administration. This is going to – all those people who say, I want a good businessman in charge of government, well, you're going to see what business government looks like. You're going to see what happens when you put people in charge of your government who grab a quarter and the eagle screams. You're going to see people suffer and struggle. And the question then for me is, look, we've crossed a lot of lines over the last couple of years that I thought we wouldn't cross as a society. But the one that I've always said is we're never going to let people just die on the street corners. We're not going to let people who need health care die because of whatever reason. We're not going to let, Granny freeze in her home. We're not going to let children starve. But I don't know that anymore. And I'm looking at this administration of what's being talked about, and I have to question when we look inside ourselves, Are we willing to let Granny freeze to death in the wintertime because they're going to gut lie heap? Are we willing to let children go hungry because they're going to go after child, hunger programs and food stamps and all of that?
Well, they've already, that's already been what Donald Trump has said.
Right.
These tax cuts, we got to pay for them somehow. So let's look at going after Medicaid, reducing those benefits and who's eligible, getting rid of food stamps, and any kind of other social safety net programs. I mean, we had this experience when we had Governor Bruce Rauner here in Illinois. Oh, we want a businessman. We want somebody who's really going to make, Illinois run efficiently. And then you started hearing from people, oh, my God, he's cutting programs that my family uses. He's cutting, we didn't think he was this. We didn't think this is where he was going to find his cuts. Nobody told us he was going to cut our stuff.
Exactly. But here's the thing. As I said a moment ago, the solutions will come out of the suffering. The savagery that they're going to inflict on us, that's what the solutions will come out of, because there's an opportunity for us to reach out to those red hats and those Trump supporters who are going to be harmed, and not in a way that we rub their nose in it, but in a way of going, hey, what do we want? Because understand, this election was not a mandate for Trump.
No.
This was an anger election. This is people are struggling. People are having a hard time putting food on the table, keeping a roof over their head because rents are crazy, because we've corporatized rentals, the food supplies, in a handful of corporations, and they're gouging us to no end. And people Democrats didn't feel that anyone was doing enough for them. This was not Republicans' win. This was a Democratic loss. Trump didn't get any more votes than he got the last time around. It's just that the Democrats didn't come out to vote. So for me, the message here is, how do we reach those Democrats for one, but also how do we peel some of those working class Trump voters who are disillusioned by a system that hasn't helped them in the last 30 or 40 years.
I want to talk to you about that more in depth, but we need to take a real quick break. I'm talking to Rick Smith from The Rick Smith Show. You hear it here on WCPT every day at 5 a.m. We're going to be right back after this.
Take Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, with you on the go by using the TuneIn app on your phone. Just search for WCPT 820.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Attention, everyone.
Don't turn that dial. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, returns right now on WCPT 820.
And I'm joined by Rick Smith of The Rick Smith Show. You hear him every morning here on WCPT at 5 a.m. We were just talking about Democrats and how they could potentially win back working class voters. I know this is something you've given a lot of thought to, Rick. What would be your advice?
Well, look, I think Joe Biden was moving us in that right direction. I just don't think they did enough to talk about what they were doing and have it filtered down to people. And it didn't happen fast enough. Look, I think investing in infrastructure is a huge, huge driver of jobs. I think investing in reshoring manufacturing, a huge driver of employment. And then making sure that those jobs are union jobs with good wages, solid health care benefits, retirement security, all of those things that make really the secret sauce that built my grandparents' generation. And I thought Biden was moving in that direction. I thought had he gotten another term, or at least the policies have gotten another term, I think we would have been in a much better place. Sadly, the anger of a lot of Democrats not going to give him that opportunity or those policies the opportunity. Instead, we're going to make sure that transgender people can't go to the bathroom. And these are the solutions that Republicans are going to be shoving down our throats. Because understand, Walmart and a lot of the big retailers are saying, well, we're going to start raising prices preemptively because Trump's going to bring in those broad-based tariffs.
They've already made that announcement.
Sure, but here's the thing, and what bothers me is that they're going to use that as an excuse, whether it's true or not. They're going to use it as an excuse to raise prices even higher, and they're going to do it before Trump takes office, so they can blame Biden for it and the Democrats for it. Because, well, they rose it before we took office, even though it was their policies. And this is the thing that drives me insane about our voters, because everyone blames Bill Clinton for NAFTA, and yes, he signed it. But the Democrats did not. The majority of Democrats didn't vote for it. The majority of Republicans did. It was fully negotiated by H.W. Bush. It would have been signed regardless of which party was in power. It was birthed under Reagan, but we never talk about that. And for me, the problem is our media culture is so bad, and it's going to get worse now that the quote-unquote liberal media is kowtowing to Donald Trump. You saw Mika and what's the guy's name?
Joe.
Heading down to Mar-a-Lago. Let me, if I could for a second, when did the liberal media when did the liberal media be a Republican congressman? When did that happen?
Yeah, good question.
But, the reality is it's why your program is so important, and programs like mine are, that we talk about what is affecting working people. Because, my audience, when people contact me, we have actual conversations about, people struggling and what policies would make things better. I believe our government should be that place where we do those things collectively that we can't do individually, like ensuring that people get health care, people get an education, people have the ability to get affordable housing or rent. What policies are the Republicans moving that will help any of those things? Did you see who the Secretary of Education is going to be?
Yes, the woman from WWE, Linda McMahon.
Exactly. You go. Did you see who's going to be in charge of Medicare and Medicaid?
Mehmet Oz.
Dr. Quack.
Yep.
You go. So this is going to be a circus on its face and on purpose, because we're going to be blinded by the chaos while they destroy and rob us blind. It's important that people like you, me, programs like on WCPT and the other affiliates that we have, that they keep their eye on the prize, which is ensuring that working people get things that they need. Because understand, the $1 a gallon gas, it ain't coming back. The 99-cent eggs that we were told we were going to get, I got listeners who truly believe on January 21st, gas is going to be $1 a gallon, eggs are going to be 99 cents. Because that's what they were told by a very powerful right-wing megaphone.
Yep.
And it's our job when that doesn't happen to say, hey, you were lied to. Here's reality. Here's how we get to a better place. And I think that's part of what has to happen over the next couple of months.
There was a really interesting article that was written about the election in the New Yorker that talked about how a lot of voters who voted in this election sort of based their decisions on sort of what they heard and what they felt. They called it like something like the ambience of news, as opposed to actually, knowing any facts. And that, we've got to realize that there's a lot of people who voted in this election. A big demographic had a 6th grade or less education, and that what they found was that the things they heard, that's how they made up their mind. But once they had made up their mind, they really only sought out things that confirmed what they already believed to be true, and that's tough. That's tough to go up against. It really is.
Well, the reality is I go back to when I started my show almost 20 years ago. It started because a union brother of mine said, we'd make more money here if there was no union here. And I turned to him and I said, well, where on the planet, where in this country is that happening? If that's true, and I'm not calling you a liar, but if that's true, why aren't you there? Why are you here?
And what did he say?
A day later, he came back to me. And he said, I thought about what you said. And you're kind of right. I got caught up in what I heard on the radio. because he was listening to right-wing blather morning to night. Because the goal of my program was to add a little balance to the airwaves, was to give another side, to talk about things from a working class perspective. Because ultimately we get the corporate side day in, day out. There's a business page in every newspaper. I'm old enough to remember when newspapers had labor pages, but that's a long time ago.
I don't remember that, and I'm as old as you, if not older than you.
Sure.
Labor pages?
The Cleveland Press had a labor section.
Huh.
Every major
Cleveland
newspaper had a labor
Dealer?
reporter. The Cleveland Press.
Oh,
The Cleveland Press went
that
out of business back in the late 70s. But they had a labor page. The New York Times had Stephen Greenhouse as their labor reporter. And if I could, real quick, for all the people who know Stephen, and I'm wishing him and his family just sympathies and condolences. His wife was killed here recently in an accident in New York City. So I want to send some thoughts and prayers out to him. But, you said Philip Dine was, in St. Louis. There were labor reporters across this country, and they've all been wiped out. But there's still the business page there. And what's happened is we get one side of every issue. So when I started this program, it was about talking about things from a different point of view, a different perspective. And as I say all the time, one of the greatest compliments I get is I may not agree with you, but you made me think of something a different way. Huh. And that's what I think our job is to do, to present the argument from a working class perspective of people who have walked a mile in our shoes, and do that in a way that's honest, that's forthright, and that is no BS. And that's what I think we do here. But I don't doubt what you've said. I don't doubt that report of what you pointed to, because the right has been spending enormous amounts of money talking to working people, building relationships through, you name the show, you name the podcast, you name the network. Mm-hmm. Democrats, labor, the left, they haven't done that. Maybe Rachel Maddow. But name someone outside of Rachel Maddow who would be anywhere near a Joe Rogan or a Bongino or a Timcast or Hannity or, go down the list of the crazies. This is why I think the left, labor, Democrats have to invest in talking to people. And reaching out and having conversations, not just a couple of months before an election, but year-round, every day, being partners with them and people that they identify with. My audience identifies with me. I'm a working-class guy. I punch a clock just like they do.
Conservative media that owns at least half a dozen cable channels. Sinclair owns over 200 local TV stations. iHeartMedia, how many thousands of radio stations across the country? I mean, even in Chicago, there's a handful of conservative radio stations. There's us. Do you think that we as Democrats need to start thinking, whether it's podcasts, whether it's YouTube channels, whether it is radio or local televisions, do you think we need to try to get on a par with the far right, or do you think it's already too late?
Did you say start thinking? I had a conversation with somebody I've been telling this to for 18 years. 18 years, we had the same conversation. I said, I need you as a sponsor. Well, we really can't. And here's why. I said, look, ultimately, if you're not talking to people, you're losing them. And we've lost the working class. There's a way to get them back. And it's this moment as what they've been sold. What Trumpism is not going to make their lives better. The policy that's going to go through major tax cuts for rich people, not going to make working people's lives better. In fact, if he does go through with the tariffs, going to make working people's lives worse. So for me, there's an opportunity in this if, Democrats, labor, the left, whatever, start building platforms with the idea that we're building relationships with people. It's not about profit. It's not about making big money. It's about reaching people. It's about building community, and it's about figuring out how we take this wonderful experiment of self-rule and self-governance and make it work for all of us, and not just the handful of billionaires who have been robbing us blind for decades.
That's what's so extraordinary to me. It is so apparent to you and to me that the current iteration of the Republican Party just doesn't care a whit about the middle class, or, God forbid, anybody who's not even in the middle class. I mean, And they're not hiding it. They didn't hide it. And yet somehow there were so many middle-class voters who were like, yep, that's my guy. That Project 2025, oh, yeah, that's what I want in government. I just don't understand what it seemed to me to be people voting against their self-interest.
Well, I mean, again, I made a joke about at least there won't be any transgender people in the bathrooms. It's because we've been fed this kind of nonsense. And when you're fighting over nonsense, you're going to get cheated out of sense. And what's happened to us is they've given us this chum in the water, and we're too busy eating that instead of paying attention to what's really important. And it's the economics. It's always the economy, stupid. It's always how you're going to make people's lives better. And where I think Democrats have fallen down over the years is we brought identity politics to a class war. And I've had this conversation with people for years who have told me, I'm the first this, that, the other thing, and I'm running for because I believe, in these issues. And I go, that doesn't help me a bit. I don't care about your sexual resume. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about what are you going to do for me and my neighbors? What policies are you going to move as a representative of we the people? Because I view politicians as tools. They're not saviors. And the sad reality is on the Democratic side, they see politicians as saviors. We get behind a Colin Allred or Amy McGrath or a Jamie Harrison, and we throw huge amounts of money at them, and they get crushed as they were going to anyway because we fell in love with the idea that we were going to take out Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham or Ted Cruz. Instead of going, hey, how do we pull those people together into a group that understands they're just tools? Mm-hmm. Politicians are just tools to get the things done that we need. And if they don't get the things we need done, they go, and we bring other ones in. Yep. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're not making people's lives better, you're just making them angry. And this election was really all about the anger of the working class.
Rick, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. Give my best to your lovely wife, Carol, and your family. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all you do.
Thanks so much, Joan. Thank you. Always great talking with you.